Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to be here today with my beloved colleague, Dr. Michael Hetrick, and our newly doctor colleague, Steffen Krebber, an amazing composer who we've been working with over the last couple of years. Steffen is a composer, a sound artist, and researcher. His work oscillates between computer music, instrumental and electroacoustic composition, sound art, research, language, epistemology, sociology, and media art. Uh, he has recently worked at IRCOM and presented some of his dissertation work there, and has recently finished his dissertation, which is why we're so proud to be able to call him doctor officially. And he has performed so many places and has had his museum pieces taken in as part of the permanent installation at the Columba Art Museum and many other places, and is a great friend and composer that we work with over the last few years. So welcome, Steffen.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and talk about the things we have planned to release in the next days or weeks. We will see.
Yeah, I was going to say it's we're on the eve of release, which maybe not technically the evening, but we will be launching this new version of Sinusoidal Run Rhythm, the plugin, over the next few days, which is extremely exciting.
Or versions.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of on the eve of the launch, it's nice to, right before we show it to the world, kind of get our impressions and talk about that under this type of energy.
I'm sorry, I was just disconnected, but now I'm back. I couldn't hear what you said.
No worries. Yes, we're saying we're on the eve of this exciting launch of Sinusoidal Run Rhythm. Maybe not technically the evening, since we don't know if it'll launch tomorrow, probably more like next week, but we've been working on it for a very long time, and it's always exciting to kind of speak about it right before we show the world and see what everyone says about it. So in kind of that light, I think maybe it's nice to look backwards, right before we look forwards. And I've always been kind of very curious about the origin of this formula and theory and sort of how you discovered it and came up with it. But maybe I'll give a little bit of a background, just describing our relationship and at least the history from our end, since it's what we know best. And I was reviewing my notes and looked back, and it was back in August 2023 that Michael, since he's always kind of in the know about things, sent me this message, and he said, check this out. There's this sinusoidal run rhythm theory that this guy came up with, and it's amazing. And then we talked back and forth about the algorithm and saw all of these beautiful drawings that you had and the website and everything. And then lo and behold, back in like maybe 6 months later in 2024, you actually reached out to us and said, hey, I have this theory of rhythm. You've obviously never heard of it, but I'd be happy to work with you. And we said, actually, we have heard of it. So it was a very nice coincidence.
Yes, it was. I was really surprised you had heard of it, and it was a nice surprise. Yeah. Maybe I can talk about it a bit, how I came up with it, and just explain it from the basic before we go into the plugin, just to understand the basic mathematics behind it. And I will make a screen share for that. So there we are. Yes, I came up with it just by trying out for my own music, and I just added up cosine function, trigonometric functions in integer ratios. And what you see here is like a JavaScript plugin on my website. It's just to show it, and you see like the curve now of two partials, one with frequency 1 and one with frequency 3. And on this line here, you see like the division of time in, if you divide in integers, like 1/3 if you want. And if you add up these two cosines, the maxima and minima as well are getting shifted from this grid. So every SRR produces, like every single combination of harmonics produces a singular microtemporal grid in one way and a microdynamic grid as well, because you see that you have these high points on different y values. And well, that's just mathematics, but it just really grooves. I can play this just back for you with a white noise. I will just play this. Like, it's for those not audio nerds, it's just adjusting the volume of the noise. And you can hear these weightings. And in the first place, I was doing it because I thought of polyrhythms, like to go 5/4, 5/7. And while doing it, I understood that it's something completely different in its nature. And it took me quite a long time to get this one in place, because for polyrhythms, like a one is just not necessary or uninteresting. But for these SRR, you have the one, like the curve going like through one phase, changing the maxima of the second partial, if you want. And with this one, I came up with that you could use this stuff to model how humans interpret, or one part of the way, the reasons why humans interpret rhythm temporally. And so there's not much theory, there's a lot of theory about it, but it's all empiric stuff, and there's no real mathematic modeling for this humanizing, which is in play already since the 70s, 60s. The first ideas came up to model that electronically, but it's never been done on a signal level, but always imitating somehow in a not really proper way. And coming up with these, I started modeling, I'm sorry, for example, this like a 4/4 beat with 8 notes, if you want, like 1, 2, 4, 8. You would think like octaves, there's no shift in the high points because it's octaves, there's nothing happening. But there is something happening, as you can see, these subdivisions, and you see all the high points are slightly shifted. And I will play it back, maybe a bit slower. And I think it's quite convincing, or that it's could be the modeling of like 4/4 bar, you say that 4/4 measure with 8 notes. So that was the beginning of all this. But the beautiful thing of these SRRs is that if you take very complicated numbers, maybe not even playable for humans, it's still you can perceive them aesthetically very well, and they groove very well. I can show some examples later of that. Yeah. So that's the basic math of it.
Yes. So it sounds like I had written down, what were you listening to or thinking about, and how kind of did you discover it? But it sounds like it was very formulaic in some sense. You were really playing around with math and trying to discover a formula that would let you describe all of these rhythms, and very much discovered one directly.
Yeah, it was like a bit. I was always wondering, because there's these texts about, like Stockhausen texts about that there's a continuity between frequency and rhythm, and it's not only Stockhausen, there's some others, but there was always this dream to bring together rhythm and harmony in a way. But I always thought there's something wrong in the way, like if you speed stuff up, it's clear you hear the basic tone of whatever you send in. But if you slow stuff down, you have to look at the waveform and what's really happening. And that was like this initial thing that I really wanted to look into what's happening there. And I saw that the maxima shifted, and I was just trying to understand that in a way. Yeah.
Very fortunate discovery. And I was struck in your book. You write about how you even comment about you're kind of surprised that it wasn't sort of discovered or thought about or talked about directly until now, since this could have been done, even on computers very early on, and even before that, kind of manually
Yeah, the math
computing it.
is 300 years old or something. Could have
Yeah.
been just pinpointed in a way. Yeah. I was really surprised in a way, but I think it's coming from like musicians always think of kind of the like notation is the real music, and then individuals like humans have to explain or it in a way that how they interpret it, and it's a very strong social thing. So this I think this covered up the discovery, because everybody was thinking, we have our notes and the score, and there is the real music, but it's just an interface, and I think this stopped people from seeing rhythm like as a signal. There's some books from the 50s from other from different people, and they always start with, yeah, it's like a sine wave, but for now we will only use the square wave, and they just put it aside. So you can really see in the history how people took the wrong turn in a way to stay with the notes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost as if sometimes it makes sense, or it's not surprising, since you sort of have to go into it with the stubbornness almost that you're happy to reinvent the wheel. Everyone might say, don't try to reinvent the wheel. They've been speaking about, there's been so many people have devoted their lives to theories of rhythm over so many years, and over the centuries, we've kind of come up with this. But if you're willing to kind of try to reinvent the wheel, oftentimes you do discover these new things. So.
Yeah, I was really very surprised, but it's beautiful, and it's a beautiful new opportunities, I think, for musicians of any kind of genre to produce more complex music, but that is not complex to listen to in a way. That's the beautiful thing about the theory. It's not like in the 50s when all this computation came into music, all this math came into music in the art music scene, and later on also in production. It was always like, if math is more complicated, it's harder to hear in a way, or it's like for people who are nerds, or I don't know. But this theory, you can do nerdy stuff, but also very complicated math in there. Like I said before, you could take, I don't know, 128, 7, and 5, and still it would sound great. But it's easy listening in a way, and it allows more complicated music, I think. I will show some example later. Yeah.
Michael.
As a trained percussionist, I have a few questions too. So first, an observation. I mean, as a drummer, my frustration a lot with programming MIDI and drum machines in general tends to fall on articulation. It always seems to be a second-class citizen, which is very strange to me. Since to me, like, the art of drumming comes down to like stick control and just managing each hit. Um, and the thing that fascinated me right away with the SRR algorithm is it solved kind of two problems in one go, which is humanization slash quantization, like the sides of the coin on it, how the hits always kind of arrive right before or after that grid line. And that's just something that's, wonderful. But the other thing is velocity. Like, when you have a Euclidean algorithm, you have more knobs and then you get less output. Like with the Euclidean algorithm, you dial in the number of steps, but each step is the same velocity. So I find this to just be a more elegant algorithm because you have fewer controls. You're just dialing in the sine harmonic relationship, but then you get velocity and humanization as a benefit from it. And so that's an observation and less of a question, but just something that I deeply appreciate as a drummer and a musician. My question actually involves drumming from a performance standpoint. So I was watching some of the live performances of your compositions, specifically ones where you were working with live drummers, where you're applying the sinusoidal run rhythm algorithm to the cymbals, and the snares and the kicks tend to be less affected. Um, but as I was watching, it's you're bringing a human into a an algorithm that's running on a computer clock. So there, there's the syncing up of the drummer over the metronome on the headphones and working with it. But I was actually more curious from a compositional standpoint. When you're writing a piece like that, do you collaborate with the drummer and listen to how the piece is flowing, like the timbre of the cymbals and the sound of the kit itself? Or do you work from a more solo standpoint? Do you make it on the computer first and listen to the composition on headphones with samples and the layout that you want, and then bring it to a drummer? Could you talk to me about like the collaborative process of working with a live musician and the SRR algorithm for a stage performance like that?
Yes, sure, I can, but I have to say I only did one piece like that till now because a lot of lack of time. So I don't have really a lot of experience. But for this piece, in the first place, I met with Dirk Rothbrust, who's the drummer of Ensemble Musikfabrik, and we just made a huge tryout, and we just microphoned lots of stuff, lots of different stuff, and listened to it with different SRRs and tried how it is for him to play with the SRRs. And that was my first idea as well, like to just not have a click on the ear and just play with it, but have like a kind of groove that is the drummer is producing himself. And the audience can hear it as well. So there's no hidden headphone or I don't know, hidden production, but it's like all open. I really like that from a compositional standpoint. And in the end, I decided to just use the drum set to make a starting point, because a lot of things sound really, really nice, especially like super balls on toms, or every sound that is complicated in a way sounds, if you like take SRR and sample and hold form, then it sounds really like a synthesizer very much. So also we tried some stuff with bassoon. This sounds like, if you take multiphonics on bassoons, it sounds very much like synthesizers because of the hard attack. I don't know, it's just completely different instrument. But this the point was that this SRR changed in a way the way Dirk played the drums, because it's got a certain feel and he's kind of getting into it. But for this piece then, I was getting quite complicated in writing, and there's not so much time in the scene often for rehearsals. And so in the end, we decided to make a click. But still, he had like, you need quite like a big projection speakers to go over the drum set in a nicely audible way. But he had as well like 2 monitors beside him to hear what he produces. So it was still important in the piece that he heard what he produced for the audience in a way. So it changed the feel he had while playing. And for the cymbals, it's nice because you hit one time and it's get like the decay is built in. But with the SRR, it sounds like someone is playing all the time and having his own rhythm. And the piece is called Sprechende Ohren. That means like talking ears. So it's about the ears are the microphones, and like this amplification is talking by itself with the drummer producing it in a way. So it's just a setup where it's just a rock drum set in a way, amplified, and but the amplification is put on and off. And as you said, Joshua, like the snare and bass is not going that hard through the process, but also it's so short that you don't hear it in a way. So the cymbals are longer, and we went very close with the microphones, and the drum and bass, they also go through. So you have because you have different signal control on right and left. So we have kind of a movement of them, but you don't hear, like, you can't make a cut up of a bass drum, or not of like a normal bass drum.
Yeah, definitely. It's
Did
it's
I
a
answer your question?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. For me, it was just a kind of more about the collaboration, like, just how
You ask
many
also.
practices and how much of it did the actual practice and performance influence the composition? Like, was it
Yeah,
iterative, or did you just kind of get there and hook it up and go, okay,
yeah, yeah.
we're going to make
I
this
missed.
work?
No, we made the tryout. Yeah, I missed. And then I went home and I made like a mock-up. I just made everything in the DAW and tried out what I want. And well, it doesn't sound like that nice like a recording, but then I could imagine how it will sound and could really work on it. I really like this to really work with a mock-up because you can be very detailed and are very close to what's really happening. And it's not about, I think sometimes this old style that you imagine everything and go through this has also a lot of limitations. I mean, because if you go in this producing thing, you get more in an experimental stage where you just try stuff out, and sometimes you make a fault and something happens and it's like, that's also nice. Or you try it out and it's not like, I know everything and I will bring it to paper in a way. This is not so much my line of work. Yeah.
I kind of get that impression and appreciate that just from a compositional standpoint. I was also very curious as to what Mike was getting at because I couldn't even imagine, you watch the drummer and you imagine trying to play like that, and it's like you hit once and you hear it, hit 7 times because of the algorithm. It must be very difficult, but also kind of fun as the drummer gets into it and starts to get into the feedback loop. And working with sinusoidal run rhythm for so long, it always strikes me because oftentimes you're putting this rhythmic pattern over something which itself has its own rhythmic or harmonic pattern. And so it always has the impression of like a moire pattern to me, where it's like this infinite complexity because you're putting you're sort of convolving one thing over another, and it creates like combinatorial multiplied complexity. So it's very kind of inspiring, and it's like a world of things to get into, which is cool. So maybe I
Yeah.
guess we could talk about that if we wanted to, is sort of how we've applied it to filtering and panning and everything, which
Yeah, maybe I can show like a short example. Like what you said is just really leading to it because I started then using just existing music and putting SRR in the timing of the music over it, and it works really well. Like you said, it's like you fold this music. Most of the time, you can't. You get the sound and maybe you somehow get the time when it was produced, but not really because if you go really fast with the windowing, you can't really say what it is or what it was, and but you get like if you take or what I did in the piece I will show now is to take really the same kind of small subdivision, so same high points as are in the composition if you want, and you get this overlapping of getting things too early or too late, and it's just again it's very convenient. You just listen to it and think, yeah, it's okay. It sounds nice. And the other point you mentioned was like it's not only for sure you can use it for amplitude, but you can use it for filters or for panning as well, or for like specialization. And for panning, it's very convincing as well. Mostly, I was shown I made it much slower in an octave ratio, but that's my personal approach. I don't know. And I just show it. I will get the session. It takes some time.
As we're waiting for that too, yeah, we're constantly hitting kind of this combination of we're brushing up against the difficulties of where it switches from rhythm into frequency. As we were talking about, there's sort of a threshold, like a 16 hertz type of thing. And actually, Michael, you were the one who, at the last minute, kind of suggested in a good way. Thank God you did, that we add the non-smoothed version of the algorithm
Hmm.
so that you could get into actual AM and FM or ring. I'll call it ring modulation, but that's a simplification. But kind of the frequency version of the algorithm, which is really nice.
Yeah, for me, it's just, as a modular synth nerd, there isn't that sort of separation between rhythm and audio ever in the modular world. And so to me, like hearing the interpolators kick on, I was just like, no, no, I wanted to hear the filter go. I wanted to hear a sideband on top of the modulation. And yeah, I felt like once we got that toggle in place, I just wanted to make so many more presets because I was just like, okay, now we can have both rhythm and timbre shifts on the same patch and have these interference patterns between like the very high frequency sine waves because we have like 256x multipliers and other ways to get these stacks really um what's a good word for it? I don't want to say incoherent, but just very different rates, very different purposes. So you can have a rhythm and a timbre component simultaneously, whereas previously it was kind of like, okay, you can have fast, but then it stops being fast, and then it just kind of sounds more of a ripple. So having it actually just really cut in and act as another synthesizer, um, it's such a cool effect once you get there.
Yeah, it was a really good idea to get this feature in, I think. I will show now, like for the MIDI plugin, it's also really nice to have it go very fast because like it's clear you get the frequency if you go very fast, but as the SRR have this dynamic weighting in it and this micro tempo, the sounds produced like as a MIDI synth, if you want, they are very soft. They have a very unique quality of sound, which I really like. It's yeah, I will show some of it. I have to. So here we are. I have to. Can you see it well?
Yeah.
I have to put your window on the other screen. So
I was just listening to this track before the interview.
yeah, now it got a bit. I've gone a bit further. So let's go here.
It's a beautiful piece, though. I keep listening to it on and specifically on speakers or headphones where I can hear the back and forth kind of binaural. I say binaural. That's kind of a funny thing as well, is that I guess it's more like equal power panning in some ways, but
yeah, it is. I just showed now with a QuickTime player. Yeah, I realized almost all of the piece with the ratios 5, 6, 7, and 12, which has got 12 high points, and used like different kind of musics overlaying, and also programmed a bass, which is controlled by synth bass, which is controlled by SRR, which sounds very much like a plate bass, then I think, and some drums, and everything's controlled by SRR by this plugin, and also, what I wanted to show is the panning is controlled by the same SRR, but I think 4 octaves lower, so slower to say. And you can produce with the plugin, like if you put on digitize and sample and hold, you just go hard, right, left, but you can also use these weightings to go in between, which sounds very nice as well. And in the octaves, it always sounds very convincing because actually, it doesn't go on the same point with switching, but somehow it sounds really nice. I didn't really go into that research, but I just looked it up. In the first place, I thought an octave would like have the same switching points, but it doesn't. So not sometimes, but not really. I have to check that out. It's kind of complicated. I will see that, but I will just play one part of it, and there's also coming a part where the MIDI is getting really fast of the bass drum, so it's starting to produce these pitches we talked about before with this like sound quality of the SRR. yeah, to be released in autumn, hopefully. Yeah, you could hear sometimes this MIDI synthi thing. I think there's much more to do with it. It was just short incidences, but I think you could like make a whole piece just with this synthi sounds. I think they're really nice and soft. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to try out with what you developed, Michael, with just to use it as a synth. I didn't check it out, but I think it would be great.
Yeah, we'll get new builds sent to you so we can hear the timbral shifts and all that too. It's a pretty wild combo.
Yeah, and also you could like make this music with a very fast used as a synth, and then reloop it with a slow SRR, and I don't know, get your music all done by it in a way. Yeah.
Well, congrats, and also it's such an honor to see the plugin used like that and to create something like that. It's just a very cool experience, and
Thank you. But I
there's
think
something.
it's very much my personal way of going with it, because like the theory or the also the plugin itself is not suited for a special kind of music or something. It's really completely basic research math, and you could just do anything like in any rhythm, or I don't know. It's not really any limitation to genre, I think. Yeah.
Right, which I always at least find those to be the best devices and everything. They're not, I guess, opinionated. Michael, you use that term a lot. We try to make non-opinionated everything where possible, although sometimes it's impossible.
The thing I'm really looking forward to once this is out is, myself as a composer and musician, I often have trouble using our own plugins while we're actively developing them, because it's hard to separate from the bug fixing and this isn't finished yet, and the developer brain from the composition brain. And the thing I'm really looking forward to with this is because we have a MIDI component and we have an effect component and they talk together. One thing I really want to do is I want to put together like a big patch, like a big project where we could just create an entire generative piece using the MIDI SRRs, hitting battalion or whatever drum sampler I want to use, and have that lay the rhythmic backbone while the audio ones are processing, but have it across track so I can just kind of turn one knob and immediately hear the metric discrepancy just kind of ripple through the piece as as the plugins communicate with each other. So it's just oh, I want to hear triplets suddenly, and then just watch as the system either falls apart or stays in lockstep, or to me there's just a really rich field here of like a parameter space to explore just between all of them interacting. So once this is out, that's 100% the thing I'm gonna do once I'm like, okay, it's stable and I can sit down and not get distracted by all this.
Yeah, it's always like that. I know what you mean as well, Mike, because as I was thinking about this last night, I was realizing I was like, oh, like all I want to do now is I'm gonna call them measures, but really, like what I mean by a measure is a sinusoidal run rhythm, like single cycle. I really want to chain cycles, so it would do two or three of one partial set, and then switch to another one and kind of go back and forth with patterns, like basically sequencing different patterns together. And then I realized, that the MIDI version should have an easy drag out of the MIDI pattern so that you could, get your partial pattern, drag it out, copy it, switch it, and then drag it out into the DAW. And that would be like a really nice way to work with the MIDI one as well. So yeah, lots of ideas.
I think it's also what I really like. That's really, I don't know, can you say handy? It's really nice that the MIDI can follow the like audio version in whatever kind you want to. But the thing is that then MIDI and like, for example, amplitude modulation got the same microtemporal grid, and you really have the feeling that you have a band with a perfect feeling matching really well. And this works really, really good from my practice. I think from a music theoretical point is interesting. I work often that I change the rate inside the bar in a way. So I just put up the rate on double or triple or something, or put one of the partials in double, triple, or quadruple. We also have it as a feature in there, and this this makes that if you see it as an interpreter, that if you want to play faster, for example, you want to switch to 16th from a quarter note, then you change the grid. So I think that's an interesting point, because the complete microtonal grid changes if you only change one partial to 16 from 8, and everything changes in a way. And I think that's a nice view. And from experimental view also, it's really nice to switch in these rates. Like, it always sounds good. It's never like that you think, no, I don't go to the double or triple. It's just like, yeah, okay. In anywhere in the beat, we make like 1/16 and say on this 16th we have a quadrupled rate, and then we go back. So you can make like I find it very interesting to work with this and see like the DAW only as like a signal, you put things in, but the rest is SRR. You just say, we take this material and it goes in, and we say, there it is, or there it is not, some sloppy way, like just there some and there some, and then you just make the details with the SRR, because then everything will fit. It was my experience using it.
Yeah, it's interesting too, kind of coming back to what you said about the material being completely transformed that you put in. Like, that's actually really surprising. And I'd be curious, Mike, if you have the same experience. But like, when I listened to that track just then, I have a lot of difficulty figuring out what is even being what the source material is, because the rhythm transforms it so much that my ears kind of can't figure it out. I don't know. Did you have that experience as well, Mike? Or
I hear what sounds like an electric guitar, but I might be very wrong. Like something playing chords and heavily distorted that gets transformed. But maybe I'm off on that one. It does throw me for a loop when I hear the cymbals in the live drum video, because I'm just so used to hearing what cymbals sound like, and it's strange that it gets like a live drummer is almost transformed into like a techno track, because the cymbal's no longer acting as purely a decay instrument. Like suddenly you have an animated noise pad, and it's just like there's like it throws me for a loop, because my visual processing is not matching my auditory processing. Like I know what a cymbal sounds like, and I know that I'm hearing the timbre of the cymbal, but it's still there's still that disconnect where I'm like, wait, what is happening? Why? That's not a cymbal. That's not what I'm hearing. So yeah, I think there is kind of like once you apply this rhythmic transform, like I think it does sometimes separate the source from the output in a severe way, and like then it becomes hard to latch on just from what you know.
Yeah, it's an
yeah, it's a
interesting point. I was really happy we did the video, because I think the piece is much stronger if you really see what is happening, because then you expect, like you said, you expect the sound, and if you only listen to it like on speakers, it's okay, it's a piece, but if you understand what's going on, it's adding a different approach also for my listening. Sorry, I
Yeah.
interrupted you.
Like one thing I think about often with this plugin is kind of, I mean, Josh did an amazing job here with the inter-plugin communication, because this is one of those things that's really frustrating as like a plugin developer and a musician, is it just kind of seems like every plugin is meant to be its own little world. And, like as a live musician, it's just so puzzling. Like it almost seems like the design of the DAW is like, okay, we're going to put you in one hallway, and you don't know what's happening in the next hallway, and you don't know what's happening in the next hallway, and somehow you're supposed to perform together as musicians. Um, and the idea of what has happened here with this plugin, it does feel a lot more like a stage setup where the plugins are listening to each other and interacting. And I don't know why that's not the norm. Like to me, it's kind of a funny thing. Like it's so novel that we're able to create this distributed system. And And I think it's like a beautiful part of the plugin, and I think it's something that we keep coming back to in this conversation, which is, the interaction between the plugin and the musician. Um, but I think the plugin and the plugin itself is the same concept. Like, for me, it was the drummer interacting with the plugin on stage. And for you, it's, adjusting the rate and hearing how things interact throughout the piece. But I think it's all part of the same conversation. It's more interesting to have a device that interacts to what other devices are doing, whether that device is, a musician that's being called a device or a plugin. The idea of just listening and reacting is something that should be much more present in music and music production. And it's hard to do just from the design of these systems. And I think just by going back and forth with you, who's working with live musicians, from Josh, who was a live musician, I think we've created something kind of novel here, which is a responsive plugin. And I think that that's something that should be celebrated and encouraged more often, and maybe something we should explore more in the future.
Yeah, definitely hard agree with that. And it's interesting, right? Like I wonder if it's since you spend so much time in the world of modular synthesis, but as if you have your mind in that kind of realm, it is frustrating when you realize that there's so much like just beautiful complexity and patterns, let's say, that are happening on some device, and then you can't kind of capture that. And actually, that's kind of what struck me about your work as well here, Steffen. It's kind of, I mean, at least from my impression, it was visual from day one as well as, sonic, but you always did the visualizers, and it's like this beautiful circular visualizer of the patterns and everything. And that's when I hear this music and realize that it's all, yeah, the book, it's really nice. But when I hear this music and know that it's done with the sinusoidal run rhythm, I realize that we could see the graph happening, and there's maybe like six of those happening at once. And if you graph those over one another, like just that itself would be beautiful because you'd see all these weird patterns emerge, like the moire patterns themselves, really. So yeah, it's a very kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's like there's these implied fractal complexity or something that's happening, and that's what makes the music so captivating.
It's almost a new form of sheet music. Like, you could break down your piece and say, here's the sheets. Like, this is the piece derived as an SRR sheet, and it's cool. There's so
Yeah.
much data that
Uh,
is
sheet
missing.
with sample rate. In a way, it's a
Yeah.
sheet music with a sample rate because you control like every sample. That's also like behind all this theory, there's the idea that you control like, or that you see rhythm as signal or as a wave, and so you don't have these integer points where you check there's something happening and there's something happening, but you control all the time if you want. So you really look into time, and you're really got your hands on every sample if you want, in a way, controlling, which is something like in combination with a modular world, I think can be really interesting because you can make your sounds modular or analog in a way, and then control it with this device. So you have like a real, I don't know, an interesting time control way, but where you can control and repeat things in a very very distinct manner. I think it's a nice combination to think about producing sounds analogically and but controlling it with digitally. Yeah.
Right, and it's almost a way to, like, I'm often, I don't know why, but in DSP working on like a compression algorithm or something, I'm always realizing I'm like, oh, I wish I had like a time microscope, the equivalent of a microscope, but for time, where I could slow time down so I could see the wave and actually hear it in that same time scale, which is impossible, which is frustrating because so many kind of things in audio happen at audio rate, obviously, and so you can tell what you can get a feeling from them, but you can't kind of get down there and see it fast enough to understand it intuitively as often. So this is kind of a nice bridge where that happens. Yeah, it's like endlessly fascinating too. I mean, even as we speak, I'm like, wondering, say you had an analog compressor or something, and if you had the ability to see the voltages and the current on every little resistor or something in real time, if you could do that magically, you'd probably see all sorts of amazing patterns and kind of repeating things and stuff. So yeah, just kind of the interoperability of the plugins is
Yeah.
pointing
I
at
think it
something that could be
opens up
fun.
also in direction to get all doors on sample rate, like everything on signal rate. I think would be a nice step. I don't know. You probably need faster computers for everyone at home, but still, it would be very nice and very easy to use. And I think it goes in that direction. But the compressor brings me to another point. Michael had the idea to use the SRR sample and hold form and like make I don't know how I say, like a ramp, yeah, ramp up and ramp down, and in combination with the MIDI plugin, this opened up a really nice possibility to have like a real-time compressor, but not a compressor, but just calculating in real time. So you get, for example, the kick and the ramp. You can control the ramp, how it's going up, and it's always like sample controlled and perfectly the same on this microtemporal grid. I didn't try that out. I didn't find the time, but I think this can be very, very nice for producers to really control this in sample rate in this kind of yeah, Genauigkeit, distinctness. And I'm looking forward to people trying that out and working with that. I because you don't have like the signal coming in and then a threshold where something happens, or I don't know, it's all delayed in a way. It's always delay, and there you have just like it's going there and it's doing it on this sampler and it's going to there, and it's always this relation which is completely controllable. I think there can be done great producing stuff.
It has a
Was a
really
great
cool
idea.
origin as well. Mike, do you want to talk about where the inspiration from that is?
I mean, it's let's see, it's like I guess what I was looking at was kind of mainly the square map. Like once you derive these steps from the SR algorithm, once you pull away the signs and you get to the divisions, they look like triggers to me. And for that, it was just uh, like how can we take these triggers? In my head, while we were working on SRR, was still very much in the battalion headspace because the 2 years before SRR was just battalion, battalion, battalion. So it was just drum machines the whole time. And so yeah, like I look at that, I'm like, okay, we ramp this? Can we figure out how to turn this into an attack decay? How can we derive this and apply it to the rhythms that we're processing? Um, and yeah, to me, it just seemed like one of those natural leaps where it was just like, we have this, we're almost to this domain if we just make one small tweak. Um, and to me, like that's a lot of like what we try to focus on is we we tend to see these boundaries in these plugins where like the audio rate boundary is another one where it's like, okay, well, here's the safe processing, here's the unsafe processing. Like how can we pull something away and make that more of a spectrum instead of like a division? And so that spectrum between the smooth processing and the step processing, for me, it's like, well, if we jump into the time domain of these triggers and we're considering the audio on the side, what are like what is the envelope here? What beyond an on off? Like what is the thing we need the most in percussion? Um, and so that sort of natural envelope processing was something that I wanted to derive from it, just because I love transient processing in general. Um, I think that was the origin, but Josh might be remembering something different. Sometimes the designs of these plugins can go on so for so many years that sometimes it's hard to remember exactly the story.
I thought it was maybe it was a different. I might be misremembering, but I thought it was you were there was a track like a Billie Eilish track, and there was an effect on there that you.
Oh, Zanny, that
Yeah,
one,
you're
the
talking
vocal
about that.
processing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so I think that was actually a different part of the development. But yeah, I was listening to that Zanny track, where he's using an audio rate tremolo to get really gnarly distortion on the chorus. Um, and this was a sound that I really loved hearing in a pop production. Like it's cool seeing hyperpop and noise and all of these other genres that are relatively more experimental make their way into quote unquote mainstream productions or something. It just warms my heart to see that division fall away. Speaking of boundaries and spectrums and whatnot, I really love what's happening in pop music. Um, but I was listening to that track and it sounded almost like things we were doing in Dent like 10 years ago, like just something hyper aggressive where I was like, oh, this won't appear anywhere close to something palatable. But from researching it, I learned that Phineas was using, some sort of audio reactive tremolo on that part, um, which is why it sounds kind of simultaneously organic and off-putting. Like the signal is the source of its own modulation. Like the amplitude of the vocal is determining the modulation rate of the vocal. Um, and that sort of linkage is a very powerful thing to the ear. Like even though you can't do the zoom in and slow down like Josh wants, like sometimes you just want to sit there and be like, why is this affecting me in the way it does? These linkages are super important, and it's something um, that once I learned, I was just like, oh, of course, the audio itself is triggering its own modulation, and that's why it's so appealing. Um, so yeah, that like early on in the process, I was like, okay, SRR needs some sort of audio reactive modulation where if we're running audio through it, it needs to modulate its own rate. And that's where that came from. So yes, it was because thanks to Billie Eilish and Phineas, our experimental multi-stage sinusoidal processing plugin has that toggle.
I just love stuff like that where it kind of pulls from an unexpected location. Um, but I guess that does get at one thing. So I mean, we kind of alluded to things we'd like to do to extend this in the future, either individually or as a group. But I guess that's one of them, kind of making a more audio reactive version, patterns and chaining. Stefan, you've mentioned a bunch of places you'd like to extend this. I guess kind of, yeah, maybe that, but also sort of a background question. Have you done any kind of formal comparison to like taking all the different families of the sinusoidal run rhythm outputs and then comparing them to either folk rhythms or traditional rhythms or Euclidean, like sort of an encyclopedic look into rhythm space in a formal sense, or not as much?
I did for some examples, but sometimes it's really obvious, as I showed before, like the 4/4 bar or something. But for the rest, I didn't really look in. I think the Euclidean is like SRR is integrating Euclidean stuff in a way, like the old rhythm theory. I like in the doctorate I wrote. I don't know how to say it. Like there's SRRs of different orders. Like if you have one harmonic, you have first order, second harmonic, you have SRR of the second order. And all this traditional music theory is SRRs of the first order because you only have one harmonic and divide time in with one harmonic. So it's somehow integrating it. And also if you take the more complex grids, you have like onset points and you can always find a music fitting with it. But I didn't really go into it. I think it's also not, I would be interested to read it, but it's not my thing to do it. But I think you can and will find lots or any stuff, because also if you start like modeling rhythm as a signal, like after Fourier, you can model any curve. So there must be a curve for any music. So it's just a theoretical fact that there must be. But I didn't really go into it as much. But what you don't maybe not know yet, I like in the thesis, I came up with a new concept, which could be our future project to implement, which is the so-called singular transits, where you go from one SRR constellation to another by sliding the frequency to one or more frequency to another integer. And the tricky point is that you come out in phase, which is not that simple, but possible mathematically. And so you got a really new concept of acceleration, because you can take an acceleration as a loop, because you come out in phase in a way. So you can take one acceleration of any kind of combination and just loop it. So you have like a music that's always accelerating if you want. And these are also very groovy. It's it's the new new development, which is also very interesting and goes much. I think the usability is more for like experimental techno, like Mark Fell stuff. Really sounds like that. He implemented in different ways, but this interest in a trajectory of frequency can be very nicely done with the feature of an SRR with this microtemporal grid shifting in time. Yeah. I think this is a way we could expand it or even make a new one. It's getting kind of complicated, but not for the user. Yeah.
I can't wait to hear that. That sounds and
Yeah,
see
I'm
it,
all about
honestly.
that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Mike, that sounds exactly you've been fascinated for a long time with accelerandi and retardandi. I mean, more complex versions than that, but on delays specifically. So I can't even imagine the complexity of trying to have them all land in phase. It's almost like a physics. I mean, it is a physics problem where you have like the motion and acceleration of multiple bodies and they have to hit like orbit at the same place or something. So
Well,
yeah.
it's enough if the one you accelerate the ones or the ones you accelerate, they come out in phase, then everything, like the unit phase of the whole SRR, if you want, then it will be in phase for the whole thing. Yeah, it's you have to integrate the I don't know the word in English, but you have to integrate the frequency, like the momentary frequency, to really control the way it goes till the end. Yeah. I will send you the link. I made it's not the real version, but I made a prototype where you can try it out. Yeah.
That's exciting. Well, yes,
Very
hopefully
excited.
we work together on something like that in the future.
Yeah.
Do I have time for one more question? Or
Yes. Yeah.
all right. The book, I mean, I just kind of wanted to plug this since this is kind of the start of this whole project. So I awesome. Yeah, this was originally how I found out about your work. This was posted on, I think, the Lines forum. Someone just kind of dropped a link to it I think it was a discussion on experimental music notation. I might be wrong on the origin of where I found this, um, but I picked it up right away because I love rhythm theory and all sorts of algorithms. And it was funny because I bought this with the intent of it being like a DSP book. And then I got it, and it was the DSP was very useful, but very brief and succinct. And then it ends up being a beautiful art object. Like this is something I actually have filed next to the mathematical beauty of numbers in nature and like John Conway's Symmetry of Things and books like that. Because like this is something I'll just pick up and I'll look through and I'll try to imagine how something like this would sound, um, without turning on the plug and without turning it like I'll just sit here and try to imagine these things. But one of my questions about this was when you went to make the book and publish it, the radial diagrams are particularly beautiful. And I was wondering, was there kind of a visual art, how do I want to phrase this? Uh, was there an artist that you were inspired by when you were putting together this book, the layout, the iconography of SRR? Or do you think it just kind of fell out of the algorithm? Like, was there someone whose work inspired you to do the setting and the layout in the way that you chose? Uh, because for me as an audio person, I'm always interested in learning more about visual art that I might be missing out on, and I love looking at this work.
Thank you very much. I I don't know if I remember right, but it was not a visual artist coming up. In the first place, we planned only to do this normal display. And there's this book by, I think, we have to look it up maybe later, by Ikeda, where he also shows like circular forms of waves. I don't know if you know that. I just forgot the name. I have to look it up. And I thought about this book, and then I tried this circular display, and it just looked so nice. So I was like, let's do it. And I was for the whole book, I was thinking about like, okay, the theory is more just in the math, and there's not so much to say, but I want to show like there's so many possibilities, but it's a countable number of possibilities, but infinite number of possibilities, but countable. But in the human realm, it's a lot of SRRs, and I just wanted to show some of them, like you show like Beetle in the Beetle books. I also write in the book like it's a collection of beautiful nature things that just exist, and you just put them on display in a way. That was what I thought about. And I also first I thought I need this like normal display because it's just what audio guys do, and time goes from left to right. But the SRR themselves, they have this kind of unit phase together, and it's just really natural to put it on to map it on the unit circle in a way.
Yeah, I think this
coming from the algorithm itself as well. Yeah,
yeah, because during the plugin development phase, we always hit kind of a junction point when we send the plugin to Paper Noise, our wonderful graphic designer, where we're like, okay, we have this algorithm. How do we make this beautiful? Or, like, how do we visualize this? How do we make this appealing? And it's funny because you solved that problem way before way before we sent this to Paper Noise. Like we knew instantly. Like we just sent it to him and we're like, okay, here's his charts. Like we just need to make this visible in the plugin, and it's wonderful to look at. So yeah, to me it was just great because like I can't really think of another situation where the audio algorithm itself, here this rhythm theory, was also partnered with the most beautiful way to lay it out. Like like you read the old Euclidean rhythm papers, and you're not like, oh, okay, I want to put that graph and make that the plugin. Whereas this, I opened this up and I was like, that's the plugin. That's what we want this to look like. Like that's how this should be. So,
yeah,
you did an excellent job there, and I think you produced not only a great rhythm algorithm, but also a really nice visual art algorithm. And so having both be able to be in this plugin at the same time made it very easy for us. So thank you. And congratulations also.
Yeah, thank you for programming it that nice. Also, Joshua, with you can really see the time passing by if you don't go too fast where you are, and every second even if it's fast, you get a grasp of how time is passing. And I also think Paper Noise did a really good job to make it like a space cockpit like.
It does feel like that. Yeah, it feels very much like a physical place you're kind of inhabiting or something, or like a clock. Yeah, it's cool on a few levels. That was actually very directly. The second we started working on this, I was like, I can't wait to get it so that I can see it move in real time. So it was at a kind of personal reason to get it done. But actually, just reading this last night to review, I was struck by something that I didn't catch the first time, which were you implying in the book that if you imagine the circular figures as actual objects, there's a point of balance? Like if you rotated it like that, there's a point that it would balance. And
Yeah,
now I really want to figure that out mathematically and show that dot in the interface. Not that either of us know if it would mean anything. Like, would it mean anything, or what is that?
It was just like a projection in the future, what could be researched. I'm not really sure if this would really help, but I was thinking if you would make empirical studies with existing music and choose the right SRR, then you have well, one thing is you have like this bow over, for example, the one, and you don't have like the on the one is happening this theoretically, but in the bow before and after the one, how much energy is in which frequency of the FFT. You could measure it in a way. You could say, in this grid point, there's this energy, and the next grid point is in this energy. So you can talk much more distinct about what is happening in the music. That was my thought. And maybe you could like, how do you say, Schwerpunkt, like this balance point. So you could give for every bar, you could give a balance point on the SRR by measuring the energy inside, like mapped with an AM. So you weigh the energy in each rhythm part. Like this is this old theme of weighing. We talked a lot about it. But then you can like measure it physically in a way and say, in this music, if you put this SR, it's got a kind of heavy point, or I don't know how to say there. So you could compare musics without vague pictures or saying like it sounds like, I don't know. You could just say this this is like this, and in the other music it's like this, or the other bar it's shifting from this point to this point. I don't know. Could be a really computational music theory. It was just kind of a vision. I don't know if it's really working, but I think you could make up these Begriffe like
Right. It implies there could be a pattern in a space where it's like, oh, Cuban music specifically, these instruments always has an off center balance over here, whereas this other genre has balance over here, and that actually does play out in thousands of
over the
compositions or
course
something.
of the four bars, the heavy point is shifting from there to there, so you don't have to like say this instrument is playing that, but you can like really physically just compare and talk about music in a really distinct way where you can't say no, it's not like that, or I hear it like that, but it's just like, okay, there's that energy in that grid point, so, and that's it. But to apply the SRR on the like to find the right SRR or the convincing SRR could be difficult for some music, I think, or is this still like kind of not arbitrary, but you would have to empirically say, really measure if these grid deviations are really there in a convincing way. Yeah.
So exciting for the future. Well, yeah, there's lots of kind of extensions, but I guess we'll just mention very quickly for the audience. If it's not obvious, maybe it's not, but we've actually never met in person. So it's kind of an interesting thing collaborating together over a long time and, very closely in a lot of senses, but never kind of being in the same room. So hopefully we'll make it over to Super Booth at one of these points and can hop over and try to meet you in person or vice versa. And I really look forward to that at some point.
Looking forward as well. Yeah. Yeah, but we really shared interest and really just got in, and I don't know, I had really good feeling on all the way we continue to finish this plugin. Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I guess just to mention, I think I've told you this before, but the power of words, that was what instantly endeared you to me, at least. And I was so complimented because you said that you thought we had a very phenomenological, exploratory, and unbiased view of audio, which was it's a cool way to kind of introduce yourself to someone. So, yeah.
Thank you. I think you have.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Stefan. It was wonderful talking as always. And it's always great to just kind of explore these abstract thoughts in our heads and these explorations that we kind of share in our unusual ways. And always, it's funny because this is kind of like the closing of the development in some sense, like we're about to finally release this plugin. And now I'm sitting here thinking, oh, there's still so much we can do. This is great. So Now I'm just thinking like, oh, can we come up with an interface for the balance point? Can we make that a parameter? What happens? And I need that the the transit control. I want to read that part of the thesis now, or the dissertation. So that there's always much more to explore, but here's to many more of these conversations, and here's to the future. And thank you for taking the time to sit down with us now.
Thank you for your time.
Cheers to the launch. I'll talk to you guys soon.